What's up, everyone? This is Soul with another video, and today we are going to go over, I think, every single tier set bonus thing that's coming in Season 2 of Dragonflight. Blizzard gave us a preview. We're going to take a look at them, talk smack. I'm going to pretend that I know what I'm talking about, and let's get right to it. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more content, and let's read what they have to say about class set design. Set armor bonuses in Season 1 of Dragonflight had relatively low impact on gameplay and rotations because we wanted to give the new talent system room to shine. In Embers of Neltharion, set bonuses can have more impact on your resources, cooldowns, and talents. Some bonuses are enhanced by playing certain talents, and some build on popular talents in the middle sections of trees. Throughout these designs, we intend for players to feel able to play the overall build or strategy that they prefer, which is kind of contradictory already, right? Because there are things that are tied to talent which compel people to focus their builds and then their stat allocations and their rotations around said talents. But without further ado, use the navigation thing to jump to whichever class that you want to look at, and let's get started in alphabetical order, starting with the Death Knights. Blood Death Knights, 2-set bonus. Heart Strike and Blood Boil deal 20% increased damage and have a 10% chance to grant vampiric blood for 5 seconds. That's their, hey, please heal me more kind of cooldown, but it's also free damage from Heart Strike and Blood Boil, which are big sources of damage. 4 sets, when you would gain Vampiric Blood, you're infused with Vampiric Strength, granting you 10% strength for 5 seconds. So pretty decent uptime on both the extra Vampiric Blood and bonus 10% strength. Your Heart Strike and Blood Boy extend the duration of Vampiric Strength by 0.5 seconds. Now, assuming that, if I have a chance to throw down multiple Heart Strikes and Blood Boils, I'm probably not going to, double the duration of Vampiric Blood and Vampiric Strength. Let's just pretend that it refreshes to like 5 seconds. But if my Heart Strike and Blood Boil extend the duration, so that's going to give me, I guess, on average, probably an extra 2 or so seconds of this bonus strength, which is, that's okay. That's not bad, but it's not a whole lot. I think the big takeaway would be that you get, I think the 2-set bonus is probably the bigger thing that we get out of it, because you just get that much more healing done on you, or, more defenses on yourself. Moving on to Frost, Howling Blast and Frost Fever damage is increased by 10%. Free damage, yay. Your Rhyme Empowered Howling Blast, so the procs, they reduce the cooldown of Frostworm's Fury by 2 seconds. Okay, it's not bad. 4-set bonus, after consuming Rhyme 15 times, you call down Frostworm's Fury on your target. Damn, at 100% effectiveness. So, not exactly like a reliable thing, like if you have something that's cool that hey, I'm gonna line this up and I'm gonna throw down like a big, I'm gonna throw down a big line of death. You can't exactly rely on these procs. I mean, of course, you could still use your actual Frostworm's Fury. So this is basically a free thing that you get every time you use 15. Every time you get 15 Rhyme procs, basically. I'm not exactly sure like how often that really is, but it's basically a free, free damage. That's not bad. Unholy, Death Coil and Epidemic damage is increased by 10%, easy. Casting Death Coil or Epidemic grants a stack of Master of Death. At 20 stacks, Master of Death is consumed, and you gain 15% mastery for 20 seconds. Okay, that 20 seconds is a pretty long time. 4 sets, when Death Coil or Epidemic consumes Sudden Doom, so when you get a free, the green button, Death Coil. When you get a free Death Coil proc, you gain 2 stacks of Master of Death, or you increase the mastery bonus to 25% for 5 seconds. So this counts on, being able to get this proc during that 20-second period of Master of Death. So basically just more mastery. More mastery, more disease damage that's going, pretty big. Moving on to Demon Hunters. Havoc Demon Hunters get this with their 2-set. Every 200 Fury you spend, you gain Seething Fury, increasing your agility by 8%, for 6 seconds. I wonder what the uptime on that ultimately is. I'm not very familiar with Havoc at all, so I'm not quite sure like how often they're able to generate and spend that much Fury that fast. But you know, if it's like 50 or so percent, that's just free agility, which is cool. Each time you gain Seething Fury, you gain 15 Fury, which is going to help you, you know, maintain it more. And the damage of your next Eye Beam is increased by 12%, stacking up to 5 times. I'm not familiar with the cooldown or if there are procs that will reset the cooldown of Eye Beam. But it just sounds like a decent amount of free damage. And if you're able to, then, you know, it would probably be in your interest to try and you know, focus on Eye Beam if there are talents that can increase the damage on that, as well as Fury generation too. All right, Vengeance, the tanky dudes. Two set bonus. Soul fragments heal for 10% more. Cool. And generating a soul fragment increases your fire damage by 2% for 6 seconds, and multiple applications may overlap. So if I'm like using, I don't know, a spirit bomb or a, you know, the shear thing, whatever that is that makes me suck in all the other souls, that basically sounds like 10 or so percent for those 6 seconds, and you can probably maintain it a little bit, so it's going to be at least like 2% that you're going to have like almost all the time. But you know, it sounds like you'll have like a little something like, you know, with very high uptime. 4 set bonus, the shear and fracture deal fire damage. Okay, so you get that much more fire damage. After consuming 20 of your soul fragments, your next cast of shear or fracture applies fiery brand to its target for 6 seconds. Now, I wonder if and I recall that there are talents that make your fiery brand spread to another target every tick. If that's a thing, that's pretty darn cool if you're able to do that. But of course, you got to consume them 20 fragments first, but I don't imagine that to take very long at all. So that sounds pretty cool. Moving on to Druids, starting with Boomkin. 2 set bonus, your Sunfire radius is increased by 2 yards. I don't think that's a big deal. Sunfire, Moonfire, and Shooting Stars damage is increased by 18%. That's more like it. All right. 4 set bonus. Shooting Stars has a 20% chance to instead call down a Crashing Star, dealing more damage to your targets, and then you get some of your Astral Power resource back. That's not bad. I'm not familiar like how often you get those ticks of Shooting Stars coming down, but that would just create like that much more resource. There's a note: the damage of Crashing Star is about 4 times the damage of a Shooting Star. Okay, so it's kind of like a critical strike, almost. Yeah, it's kind of like a super critical strike, assuming that Shooting Star is already crits. All right, Feral. 2 set, your auto attacks have a chance to grant Shadows of the Predator, increasing your agility by 1%. For how long? Each application past 5 has an increasing chance to reset. Oh, so it resets to 2 stacks. So you're gonna almost constantly have 2% more agility, and it can go past 5, but there's a chance that it'll like drop down to 2. So it's like this. It kind of reminds me of that Mage talent where, you know, your spell damage goes up and down, but this one you have a tiny bit more control. 4 set bonus: when a Shadows of the Predator application resets stack, so when it does go down, you gain 5% increased agility, and you generate 1 combo point every 1 point. Wow! So you gain 4 combo points, and during that duration, you have, you know, you're basically. That's wild. Okay, so each application past 5 of the Shadows of the Predator will it'll kind of reset it to 5% again. So it feels like you're gonna have 5% increased agility like almost all the time, but you're also going to get lots and lots of combo points. That sounds nasty. Not familiar with Feral, but that sounds really cool. All right, Guardian, 2 sets. When you take damage, Mangle and Thrash damage and Rage Generation are increased by 15% for 8 seconds. And you heal for a 6% of damage taken over 8 seconds. Okay, that sounds like a lot of free healing. So you're already going to be doing, druids are already going to be doing like a lot of bubbly protection stuff from themselves. Now imagine like when you take like excuse me, you take a really big hit that would otherwise like darn near kill you, and healers are going to panic for a little bit to try to get you up. Druid is probably going to proc a number of things that will get their HP back up, but on top of that, 6% of what would have been like a giant hit is going to be is going to come back as healing. So basically they're going to constantly get healed if and when their shields and bubbles are penetrated. It sounds cool. And this is coming from someone who who comes from it as a tank, and I really like that feeling of self-sustain and self-heal. And these set bonuses definitely seem like I'm only talking about the 2 set. Let's look more. Maul and raise damage increased by 20%, and casting Iron Fur or Maul or Raise will increase your maximum health by 3% for 12 seconds, and it stacks up to 5 times. So 12 seconds. But you gotta use Iron Fur, Maul, or Raise. So basically, use one of the big rage spenders within 12 seconds. It pretty much sounds like in most situations, Guardian Druids will have 15% more health. Yeah, that's a solution. Just give them more health to make up for whatever they're lacking on. That's a really cool that's a really cool set bonus. Now Resto. 2 set. Rejuve and Life Bloom healing increased by 15%. Easy. Regrowth healing over time increased by 75%. Also easy to understand. Sounds like a very cool thing. 4 set. Flourish increases the rate of your heal over time effects by 40% for an additional 15 seconds after it ends. Verdant Infusion increases your Swiftmen, causes your Swiftmen target to gain 15% increased healing from you for 6 seconds. So huge healing for whether you're doing raid stuff or if you're doing raid healing, which they should be doing, or if they're doing a bunch of single target healing on like tanks or such. The duration, there's a note. The duration of the 4-piece Flourish bonus is halved if Flourish is cast by Convoke the Spirits. Totally understandable, but that looks good. This seems like a very, dude, it increases the rate of your heal over time effects, which is like everything, by 40% for 16 seconds after the Flourish effect ends. That's a lot of spell power, I think. This is a huge boost for Resto Druids that managed to get this set. All right, Evokers. 2 sets for Devastation. Disintegrate and Pyre pierced enemies with obsidian shards, dealing 12% damage done as volcanic damage over 8 seconds. So basically 12% more damage from Disintegrate and Pyre. But because it has that 8-second damage over time, if you're throwing multiple pyres, you're not going to get like that full benefit. 4 sets. Empower spells, so the the charge up things, they deal 8% increased damage and cause the obsidian shards, as mentioned in the 2 set, to become supercharged, dealing double damage for 5 seconds. During Dragon Rage, shards are always supercharged. Not super interesting. It doesn't change. It's funny. The earlier thing from the dev team said, "Oh yeah, we want to focus on like talents and and kind of change up gameplay a little bit." This seems to not be it. This seems to be extremely passive. Not the end of the world. I'm not going to complain, but it's all right. Just all right. Preservation or Prevokers. Spirit Bloom applies a heal over time effect for 40% of healing done from that Spirit Bloom over 8 seconds. Free healing. Dream Breath's healing is also increased by 15%. So easy to understand, doesn't change really much. After casting 3 Empower spells, gain Essence Burst, which I believe is the proc that lets you use certain things without using Essence stuff. So you gain a charge of Essence Burst and another one 3 seconds later. I wonder if they stack at all. If they do, great. It gives the healer a chance to spend essence as they need to. Otherwise, I mean, within 3 seconds, chances are we can find a way to use Essence on like something that we would consider to be important. So I think that's a pretty good, I think this is a pretty decent throughput increase, although not like super like, you know, change totally how we would play. Moving on to Hunters, starting with Beastmasters, the best one of them all. Cobra Shot and kill command damage is increased by 15%. It's as straightforward as you can get. Nice buff. 4 sets. Cobra Shot, Kill Command, and Multi-Shot reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath by 1 second. You know, in the context of, you know, all the things that can reduce the cooldown of Bestial Wrath, so there's these with the set bonus, and then there's what we already have, which I believe is mostly Barb Shot, which you can get 2 charges of, which can refresh faster, which takes big chunks out of the Bestial Wrath cooldown. So this doesn't feel like super effective, but it just increases that uptime of Bestial Wrath. More damage, more sustained damage, even if it's not going to be like huge burst damage, which I know that a lot of Beastmaster hunters have said, hey, we don't have a whole lot of that. But having more sustain is good, I guess. Marksman, 2 sets, Arcane and Chimera Shot and Multi-Shot deal 10% increased damage and have an 8% chance to grant you the Death Blow effect. I believe that's the hey, use a kill shot whenever you want, whenever these prog. So cool, more kill shots. 4 sets, kill shot damage is increased further by 15%, and kill shot reduces the cooldown of rapid fire and aim shot by 0.5 seconds, which I believe Death Blow is procced originally by rapid fire and aim shot. So this is like an included effect to give more kill shots, and this I guess buffs the regular abilities that give you the. So basically, more kill shots, more. That's cool. Survival. Wildfire Bomb damage is increased by 10%, and throwing a Wildfire Bomb increases the damage of your next kill command by 50%. That's pretty strong. Kill command for survival is not something to just shrug about. 4 sets. Every 25 bonus that you spend reduces the cooldown of Wildfire Bomb by 1 second. I'm not familiar with the actual cooldown of Wildfire Bomb, but from the sounds of it, you're going to get a lot more use out of that ability, as long as you have enough focus. Although I don't even know if Wildfire Bomb does use focus, but more of that, and that's good. I think that's pretty cool. Moving on to Mages, 2 set bonus, Arcane Surge. Arcane Surge, that's a big nuke, I believe. Big nuke plus a buff. It increases spell damage by an additional 5%. See, I knew it was a buff. And its duration is increased by 3 seconds. So that'll get you like 1 or 2 casts, something like that. So that's not bad. 4 sets. For every 20,000 mana spent during Arcane Surge, and I believe Arcane Surge, it like sucks up all of your mana, but then you get like a lot of it back. You have like super regeneration. So it's game time. You got to spend it like crazy. Your spell damage is increased by 1% for 12 seconds after Arcane Surge fades, stacking up to 30 times. So potentially, if you can spend that much manzas within those 12 seconds. I'm sorry, not those. Okay, let me reread this again. So for every 20,000 mana spent during Arcane Surge, and Arcane Surge, it lasts, I forget, like 15 or so seconds. So within that time, if you spend enough mana after the Arcane Surge goes away, you're going to get up to 30% spell damage for 12 seconds. Ooh, that's big. Now, things got to line up pretty well, I think, in order for the caster to spend like that much over that time. So maybe you won't be able to get that 30%, but boy, they're going to try. And if you can get even like 15 or 20 stacks of that sounds pretty awesome. And that's for another 12 seconds. So that's pretty cool. Pretty much lasts like an entire like Bloodlust duration almost. All right, Fire. 2 sets. Phoenix Flames applies Charring Embers to all enemies that it damages, increasing their damage taken from you by 6% for 10 seconds. I don't recall the cooldown of Phoenix Flames, but it's basically cool. We're going to get a damage increase for that duration. 4 sets. When your direct damage spells hit an enemy affected by Charring Embers 30 times, you gain hyperthermia for 6 seconds. Hyperthermia, if I recall, that is what lets you throw free the big ones. I was going to say Chaos Bolts. Pyroblast. It lets you throw free Pyroblasts and something else that's kind of big. I think it's like the big Flame Strike ability. But you gotta hit an enemy affected by Charring Embers 30 times, and it's when your direct damage spells hit an enemy. So it doesn't sound like a super reliable or a super, it's not going to have that much uptime. You got to hit a dude 30 times. And if you use even with instant spells, you're still looking at 40 something seconds between when you would get that hyper, which is not realistic. You're not going to be, doing anything degenerate like that just for this Pyroblast proc buff sort of thing. But it's still not bad. It's still free damage, even though you can't exactly control when it's coming. Hey, I'm going to be thankful that it comes anyway. It's not interfering with anything else or any of the original cooldown durations. So, all right, and for the best spec, Frost, 2 sets. Flurry and Frostbolt damage is increased by 20%. Free damage, cool. Flurry causes an explosion on impact, dealing 50% of its damage to nearby enemies, and damage is reduced by whatever. So Flurry becomes an AoE thing, and that's just the 2 set. That's not bad. Definitely, obviously, only use it when you have that proc going, but yeah. 4 sets. Casting Ice Lance on a frozen target has an 8% chance to trigger Brain. So Brain Freeze, I believe, is what lets you hit Flurry. So this is definitely a Flurry-based sort of set. Casting Ice Lance on a frozen target has an 8% chance to trigger Brain Freeze. 8% doesn't sound like a whole lot. I don't think, but hey, if it's more on top of everything else, and you're able to get more of those charges of Brain Freeze going, that's a lot of that's just that much more flurries going out. So I think that could maybe use a little bit of adjustment, but that's not bad. All right, moving on to monks, starting with Brewmaster, 2 set bonus. Blackout kick damage is increased by 20%, and you have a 10% chance to not reset your elusive brawler stacks on a successful dodge. Elusive brawler is one of those kinds of talents, or it's one of those procs where if you get hit, you get dodge, but then when you dodge, you lose that buff. So it's a way to make you just dodge more stuff. So if you have a 10% chance to not reset your elusive brawler stacks, that's pretty cool. That is pretty good. That it won't exactly save the I would say that it wouldn't well, maybe it will. Maybe it would save the monk, where if they're taking tremendous damage, or if they're taking constant hits and they're gaining those stacks of the dodge, it could hopefully mean that the next dodge that they would their next dodge wouldn't reset the stacks, and it gives healers and the monk that extra swing time to get themselves back up. So in a way, it helps. I think you would see more benefit from this, because you would see the monk just not taking any damage. Dude, they're not even getting hit. What's going on? Whenever they are, they're staggering it off. Whenever they're so this seems pretty cool. Mistweaver, 2 set bonus. Actually, wait, I didn't even do the 4 set. Sorry about that. Rising Sun Kick grants a stack of elusive brawler. Oh, so you just get it for free. So this is it's almost like the monk hitting themselves. So they gain a stack of elusive brawler somewhat sort of passively. When you dodge, damage and critical strike chance of your next blackout kick or rising sun kick is increased by 5, stacking up to 5 times. So this part is a damage based kind of bonus, but I think getting this basically means the monk is going to dodge a heck of a lot more, which is kind of good, kind of bad. When you think about it, like from the healer perspective, it's like, okay, cool. Hey, monk's doing fine. Monk's doing fine. Oh my god, because of dodge-based tanks. We've seen that in the past, but it's still pretty fun. Now we'll go on to Mistweaver. 2-set. Renewing Mist has a chance to grant Soul Fang Infusion, granting 5% of your maximum mana over 6 seconds. So, mana return. That's cool. Drinking a tea or gaining Soul Fang Infusion increases the healing of your Vivify and Renewing Mists by 40% for 6 seconds. That seems pretty good. Now, if Renewing Mist is constantly, if it procs off of like ticks of Renewing Mist, I believe that's the hot. This can potentially mean like quite a bit of uptime. Although it's probably not going to be too much uptime, because if the 2-set is giving mana or mana return, however you want to pronounce it, if it's too high, then they're going to have infinite mana, and then and then that's probably going to be like a little bit too good. So it's probably not going to go off like that often. But I'm thinking of like Fist Weavers who are going to have like lots of their hots going, and they're going to be using. They may be using those ticks to. It just sounds like a whole lot more healing for Fist Weavers, all right? Because that's the spec that I'm mostly familiar with. It just sounds like it may be pretty powerful. If I'm wrong, please correct me in the comments. All right, Windwalker. Rising Sun Kick deals increased damage and has a chance to go Nova, dealing fire damage to all enemies within 8 yards. That sounds pretty impressive. It doesn't even say like how much damage it's going to cause, but it just sounds cool. 4-set. Your melee auto attacks have a chance to launch a Shadow Flame Spirit at your enemy, your current target, that duplicates your next 3 abilities at probably reduced effectiveness. That sounds cool. So, oh man. So would it duplicate things like Fist of Fury? Because this is like it's like a, not Storm, Wind, and Fire. It's more like Shadow Flame. So it's 1 extra dude that we get out of it. So yeah, that's pretty cool. Easy damage. All right, now for the greatest class of them all. 2-set Holy Paladin stuffs. Holy Shocks, critical strikes, heal. They heal for 15% more, so you get more crit damage for healing at least. And it reduces the cooldown of Light's Hammer by 2 seconds and a Holy Prism for 1 second. If I recall, Light's Hammer has a cooldown of a minute. Holy Prism 20 or 30 seconds or something like that. So you got to pick up the talent though. If you don't pick up the talent, you get nothing. And there might have been things that I missed up above, but yeah, with this iteration of tier bonuses, in some cases you have to pick up certain talents, which, again, kind of good, kind of bad, but let's see what we get out of this one. 4-set, Light's Hammer heals 100% more frequently, so a lot more healing, double the healing basically, and generates 1 holy power every 4 seconds. I think that goes off for like 15 seconds, so you get like 3, or I guess you get like 3 holy power out of it. Holy Prism's healing is increased by 80%, which is cool, and it generates 1 holy power if cast on an enemy target, or 3 if cast on an ally. So, duh. I'm probably gonna macro that to have it on myself. So that way, every 20-30 seconds or so, I hit 1 button, boom, holy power, and then boom, I spend it on something else. I'm a little bit about a very holy power centric bonus, but I also think of like the way that I would want to play a holy paladin, which is to play an Avenging Crusader kind of build. This would help me get the holy power that I need in order to fire that thing off and then do like some tremendous healing, because Avenging Crusader has changed. That's been revamped a little bit too. Won't get into it because everything can change, just like all of this stuff. But yeah, the takeaway from that is very holy power centric, and it centers mostly on these talents. Not quite sure how to take that, but I know what I would do with this bonus so far, at least. All right, now for the greatest tank of them all. Avenger Shield is a 2-set bonus. Avenger Shield causes targets struck to burn with Heartfire. Targets struck. So I'm going to assume that like everyone's going to get this Heartfire debuff thing, dealing an additional 20% of the damage dealt over 5 seconds, and Heartfire heals you for 100% damage that it deals. This sounds wimpy. Okay, this sounds wimpy because if I spec my Avenger Shield to hit 5 targets, cool. Or maybe if I hit it with if I use Fan of Shields, if I use Divine Toll, I call it Fan of Shield. I'm sorry. If it just takes 20% of that damage, so assuming a 10k hit from an Avenger Shield off of one target, that's 2,000. That's 2,000 damage dealt to them, but 2,000 damage that comes back to me. Multiply that by 5. That's 10,000 healing for me. That's kind of wimpy. Yeah, because it would be at most 2,000. It would be at most like 2,000, 10,000 healing. Yeah, that just doesn't sound like a lot. Anyway, 4 set. Judgment critical strikes can trigger Grand Crusader, so more shields. So throwing shields as a protection paladin means you get bubbles, you get you do extra damage, and you get basically the bubbles. But it also, we get extra cushion with this Heartfire bonus. It just doesn't sound like a lot though. If anything, if I don't mind the damage not being a whole lot, but if Heartfire healed me for like double the damage, I think I would take that better. Because it would feel like substantial. This is very forgettable. It sounds cool at first, but when you actually do the math, it just doesn't sound like a lot. Boo. I think of like the Druid one. The Druid one sounds like so cool by comparison. Anyway, Retribution. Judgment and Hammer of Wrath deal 10% increased damage and 20% increased critical strike damage. Okay, cool, easy. 4 set. Judgment increases the damage enemies take from your Holy Word spenders by an additional 5%. And Hammer of Wrath applies Judgment to enemies. Oh, okay. So the whole shtick of Ret Paladins is use Judgment on the enemy that you want to hurt a lot more, and then use spenders on it to actually apply that stuff. So we're going to be able to, so basically we're going to have even fewer opportunities to not have a Judgment debuff on an enemy. The exception would be if we're switching targets and then we immediately open up with a spender, which is not the way to do it. You want to apply the debuff first, then spend, then reapply, and this applies. This kind of closes those opportunities for us to not have that, and I think that's cool. Yay! I think Ret's got a good one. Yeah, the other ones, Holy is like, it's kind of alright. Protection, I feel like it's lacking. Ret, I think it's pretty decent. Priestesses. Discipline, two-piece. Casting Penance on an enemy also heals a nearby injured ally at 20% effectiveness. That doesn't seem like a lot. Casting Penance on an ally also damages an enemy at a nearby enemy at 35% effectiveness. So it's kind of like auto atonement, kind of, sort of. It's just not a whole lot though. 4 sets. Every 3 casts of Penance grants you Shadow Covenant for 5 seconds, and it converts that Penance into a Shadow spell. Shadow Covenant, it makes some of your abilities Shadow, and it makes them stronger too. So if it also converts every 3rd Penance into a Shadow Covenant charged Penance, it's overall like a buff to Penance, and it feels pretty cool. And then you get whatever the benefits of Shadow Covenant that you get. Now, every 3 casts of Penance, I don't recall if that there are that there's like a reduced cooldown for Penance. Like you won't be able to get more out of it. I know that there's like more ticks that you can get out of it, but I don't think you can throw more penances faster. So uptime is going to be pretty fixed, but it's still just overall more healing. Cool. Holy. Prayer of Mending, which by the way is the most awesome spell in World of Warcraft. Prayer of Mending has a 20% chance to duplicate to another target when it jumps. I still don't recall very well if Prayer of Mending duplicates, if they stack together, or if if they kind of consume each other, or if they collide, if they happen to go onto the same target. But if it has a chance to duplicate, that's going to mean, like, if you use the Holy Word, the big one, the big one that applies it to every, Salvation, I think. It applies a big heal, and on top of that, Prayer of Mending and Renew on everyone. If these things are bouncing around like crazy, so that's going to mean in periods where, like, let's say like Razageth or something, where you have so much damage that's pulsing on everyone like all the time, and these Prayer of Mending things, it's going to be like a light show all the time if these things will end up duplicating, especially if it duplicates with the number of charges that it has. And so it has this, there's this potential for it to just keep bouncing around like almost forever, which would be kind of nuts. 4 sets. When Prayer of Mending jumps, it increases the damage and healing of your next holy word by 4% and stacks up to 15 times. Okay, so if Holy Word Salvation works with this, that's like a huge nuke kind, a huge burst heal that the Holy Priests will be able to do just on their own. Now, I doubt it's going to apply to all the Prayer of Mending and Renews that it also does. It just, I recall that Salvation just applies those things, and a set bonus like this, it wouldn't affect those secondary effects, but just the nuke. But I think that's pretty powerful if it works with Salvation. I hope Salvation is the right spell. All right, and Shadow. When consuming Shadowy Insight, Mind Blast deals 60% increased damage and generates 4 additional insanity. If I recall, Shadowy Insight is the thing that makes your Mind Blast free, no cooldown, just blow. So free damage, additional insanity, can't complain. 4 set bonus, every 400 insanity spent, I don't recall the uptime on that, it summons a Shadow Fiend or a Mindbender for 5 seconds, which will get you, a little bit of extra insanity. So this is the kind of set that, especially the 4 set, where you really want to stay on top of your insanity production, your income, and how often you're spending it. The more you spend, the more you get, which means the more you spend again, and it kind of perpetuates. So not bad. Not, a little bit passive, but it just means that the Shadow Priest is going to feel a little bit faster with throwing out insanity-based abilities. Cool. Rogues. Starting with Assassination, 2 sets, Rupture and Crimson Tempest, which are dots. They deal an additional 33% damage as Nature. Cool, not bad. 4 set, when Deathmark expires, and I believe Deathmark is kind of like the Havoc ability, kind of a Havoc ability for Rogue. You apply a dot to someone, or a debuff to someone, but when it expires, nature damage that you deal is increased by 40% for 30 seconds. That's not bad, considering that Assassination puts a lot of emphasis on poison and nature damage, and 30 seconds is a lot. I don't recall off the top of my head what the cooldown on Deathmark is, but that's just a lot. That's just a lot of additional damage, and hopefully, you don't run into a situation where you spend, you use Deathmark, and it's like, all right, cool, and then you lose opportunities to do damage because you got to move or there's a phase change or something like that. But this is one of those situations where it's like, okay, cool, during a Bloodlust phase, you're going to get like an extended oomph. Even after you use your main cooldown and your pods and all that stuff. So it's a cool sustain. Outlaw, 2 sets. Damage that you inflict, any damage you inflict, I guess, applies a Soul Rip, dealing 5% of all damage that you deal as extra physical damage over 8 seconds. Easy damage. 4 sets. Between the Eyes, which is a proc, it unleashes all Soul Rips. I think that's a proc. It unleashes all Soul Rips, dealing 200% of all remaining damage and granting 7% agility for 15 seconds. So it sounds like all damage that you deal. So does this apply to like any damage over time? Does it apply to AoE? It doesn't say specifically that it has to be like direct damage, like one of the Mage tier set bonuses had mentioned, that it needs to be direct damage. So this is any damage that you inflict. So without really knowing like what the uptime and the proc rate of this is going to be. It just seems like you're going to get you may potentially get, you know, I'm just going to guesstimate, you know, 10% or so damage. All that's going to come from just Soul Rip, because you're going to be applying damage to stuff, and you're going to constantly, you know, I guess whenever Between the Eyes goes off, that's when you're going to get the extra damage from it. So yeah, it could be a lot of potential extra throughput. And then Subtlety. Shadow Dance grants you Symbols of Death for 10 seconds, and it extends the duration of Rupture by 4 seconds. I don't remember what Symbols of Death is at all. I apologize. And then the 4-set Symbols of Death, it increases the critical strike damage of Eviscerate and Black Powder by 15%. Yeah, I don't recall exactly what Symbols of Death is. I'm gonna guess it's one of the talents that you can pick up. But it doesn't. But you do get basically some extra damage, and your next bits of extra damage are going to be increased pretty easy, even if I don't know what it is. Moving on to Shaman. 2 set. You gain Stormkeeper every 40 seconds. Wait, I think Stormkeeper is the one where you can throw out enhanced versions of Chain Lightning and Lightning Bolt. So, and that's it already has a pretty short cooldown of, I think, like a minute or so. So just getting one for free, that's like, now I wonder, like, how would that work at the start of a raid encounter or something like that? Like, can I just kind of like sit out of combat and like, hey guys, can I get like 20 more seconds? I gotta get a Stormkeeper charge back. And they're like, oh, fine, let's wait for the Shaman. Or is it gonna be like, okay, fight starts and then the counter begins? Count to 40 seconds. Or the encounter starts and the Shaman immediately gets a charge of Stormkeeper. That's gonna be kind of interesting to figure out, because if you get a free one like right at the start of the encounter, it's like, cool, I can you know, prep my cooldowns, do a nuke, use my free charge of Stormkeeper, cast another one, and then deal like that much more damage. So that's a very impactful 2-set bonus. But how impactful is it? We're gonna find out. 4 sets for 8 seconds after you consume a Stormkeeper. Your Lightning Bolt, your Lava Burst, your Ice Fury, your Frost Shock, they generate more Maelstrom for those 8 seconds. And your Chain Lightning, Lava Beam, and Earthquake crit damage is increased by 20%. So you're getting pretty nasty with your uptime, with being able to use spenders, big nukes. I think that's a pretty cool set bonus so far. Enhancement, 2 sets. Sundering increases your mastery by 12%. For 15 seconds. Sundering, I believe, is like, it's like the big earth attack, I think. So 12% more mastery. Fairly decent uptime, not bad. 4 set. When Sundering hits just one target, you deal 30% increased physical damage for 15 seconds. I believe that's a lot. I know that Shaman deal a ton of nature damage, but I don't think their physical damage is anything to shrug about either. It's, you know, so when Sundering strikes 2 or more targets, your next Chain Lightning deals 50% increased damage and refunds 100% of the Maelstrom weapon stacks consumed. Now, ideally, you want to wait until you have the maximum stacks. That way, your Chain Lightning is instant. There we go. And then you'll be able to do it twice if you wanted to. Now, I wonder if there's a situation where if you are fighting multiple targets, is there a scenario where you would want to kind of pivot your character and, hey, I only want to hit one target because I want to get the increased physical damage for a little bit, but then I'll go back to facing them, and then on my next Sundering, I don't know exactly how that ability works, or if there's like a way to get like free procs or instant cooldown or whatever. Then you apply that, and then you can get this Chain Lightning buff too. I don't know. But it's just kind of a thought that comes to my head. All right, Resto, 2 sets. When you cast Healing Rain, all allies with your Riptide on them are healed by Tidewaters for, you know, some extra stuff. So definitely Riptide. Yeah, Riptide everybody, because it's going to make your Healing Rain into like that much bigger of a nuke. 4-set bonus. Each ally healed by Tide Waters, going back to the 2-set bonus, it increases your haste by 1% for 6 seconds, and it increases the healing of your next Riptide by 10%. So there's an obvious limit to how many people you can Riptide, so I'm not exactly sure what the maximum potential haste would and could be, but if it also increases the healing of your next Riptide, again, this really emphasizes more Riptides, do it forever, never stop. I think some people may not be really happy about like Riptide dependency, because it's like, oh, but I'm a Shaman, not a Druid, but you know, oh well. Warlocks. Affliction 2-set. Vile Taint cooldown is reduced by 5 seconds, and Phantom Singularity cooldown reduced by 12 seconds. Vile Taint and Phantom Singularity damage increased by 60%. Now, if I recall, those are more like AoE talents. Vile Taint, it applies like a debuff, and I think Agony, I believe. Curse of Agony is applied by that. Phantom Singularity, I recall that less, but it's like a big AoE sort of thing, and Phantom Singularity has a longer cooldown. I'm not quite sure what the reduced cooldown means, because Agony, it lasts at most like 18-ish seconds, and Vile Taint, it's not going to create a situation where, oh, I'll just use Vile Taint to refresh Agony. I guess when Vile Taint is off of cooldown, it just means, oh, cool, instead of me reapplying Agony, then I'll apply Vile Taint instead. But you just want to make sure that you snapshot Agony like really good before you use Vile Taint. It sounds okay, this 2 sets, because I mean, these 2 abilities, they just do extra damage. It just seems like it emphasizes, hey, I know it's an AoE talent, but you want to pick it up for single target damage too. That's what this set seems to communicate to me. 4 sets. Enemies damaged by Phantom Singularity gain Infirmity for its duration, and enemies damaged by Vile Taint gain Infirmity for 10 seconds, increasing damage taken by 10%. So they gain. So basically, affected enemies are going to take 10% increase damage from the Warlock. The 4-set bonus, there's a note here. The 4-set bonus technically applies Infirmity for 2 seconds every time an enemy is damaged by Phantom Singularity. It deals damage every 2 seconds, so this has the effect of keeping Infirmity on targets for its duration, as long as they're inside of Infirmity. I feel like Vile Taint is like the cooler thing anyway, but I'm just not familiar enough with Phantom Singularity to know any better. Demonology. 2 sets. Demon Bolt damage is increased by 15%. Easy. Consuming a demonic core reduces the cooldown of Grimoire Felguard by 1 second. Now, I mean, this might be cool if you have a build that's really centered on Demon Bolt. Not everyone's fond of it, but I like it. So, 4 sets. Grimoire Felguard deals 40% additional damage, and it empowers your active demons, increase their damage done by 20%. So it turns your Felguard into a cute little demonic commander person. Like, he got a little promotion. He or she, sorry. They get a little promotion, which I think is kind of cool. Yeah, this is a pretty neat one. I mean, they're not super related, but maybe I'm just not familiar enough with how demo works these days. And then destruction. Channel Demon Firebolts, Immolate and Incinerate have a 20% chance to fire an additional Channel Demon Firebolt. Wait, isn't Channel Demon Firebolt like the little baby, the little water gun things that I see Destro locks channel that do like very, very little damage? Yeah, so I hope that this 20% chance means it's every instance of Channel Demon Firebolts, because you know, they fire off like 10 or 15 of those things. So I hope each of those have a 20% chance to fire an additional one, or that Immolation Ticks, each one has a 20% chance to fire off a bolt. Because if not, then I mean, you have like a certain cooldown of this ability. Yeah, being able to fire off a thing like that kind of sucks so far. 4 sets. After casting 15 Demon Firebolts, which I hope the actual ability counts, your next Demon Firebolt deals more damage as well as damage to enemies. Yeah, I really hope that this 20% chance applies to like ticks and everything, because then that would make this set bonus like kind of cool. So it's really going to be dependent on that. I hope that 20% chance applies to like every instance of bolts, every dot that's going out. Now, I also recall that there are abilities that let you apply immolation to multiple targets at once, and so that could make this potentially feel a little bit overpowered, but I'd rather go further down the route of being overpowered first and then try to dial it back as we go through with PTR builds. Because right now, I'm looking at the bright side. I'm hitting that copium, but right now I'm sure some people are just really depressed over the potential of this bonus. All right, moving on to warriors. Final one. Arms warriors, 2 set. Deep wounds increases your chance to critically strike and the critical strike damage dealt to afflicted targets by more crit chance, more crit damage straight up. Deep wounds is like going on forever from an arms warrior. 4 set. Deep wound critical strikes have a chance to increase the damage of your next slam by 25%, stacking up to 10 times, so up to 2.5 times the damage, and it causes it to strike up to 4 additional targets for 50% damage. That sounds nasty. And here's a note. The chance for the 4 set bonus to trigger its effect increases at a diminishing rate for each target beyond the first. It's similar to the effects like Agony and Shooting Stars. So it's not going to be like, it's the 250% chance increase. 250% increase, it's not like guaranteed to have that much uptime, but you are going to get like an easy cleave out of it. So that's not bad considering all the other things that arms warriors can do to apply extra damage. Fury, 2 set. Rampage damage and chance to crit strike is increased by 10%. Cool. That's a lot of damage. 4 set. Rampage critical strikes against your primary target cause your next Bloodthirst to deal 50% increased damage and generate 2 additional rage, stacking up to 4 times. It also has a 100% chance to critically strike. Now, Bloodthirst, I'm not familiar enough with Fury, but Bloodthirst is one of those abilities that you use at a lower priority or at the lowest priority in order to get your enrage back. So I guess this makes you feel not as bad when it's like, oh man, my raging things didn't do it. I need to get my enrage back, and so I hit a Bloodthirst. Like, oh man. So now I guess it makes that Bloodthirst not feel as bad whenever that happens. That's kind of what it sounds like. Kind of a weird way. Maybe I'm not understanding this correctly. Very likely, but it's kind of a weird bonus there. Hey, your low priority ability doesn't feel as bad. And then finally, protection. Shield Slam deals 15% increased damage. That's nice, and it reduces the cooldown of Last Stand by 0.5 seconds. During Last Stand, these effects are doubled. So during Last Stand, Shield Slam hits even harder, and I guess that use of it will reduce the cooldown of Last Stand by 1 second, again, during Last Stand. Cool, not bad. And then the 4 set. For 10 seconds after Last Stand ends, Shield Slam unleashes a wave of force, dealing damage to enemies in front of you and reduces the damage that they deal to you by 5% for 5 seconds. 5% reduced damage is kind of wimpy, right? It's kind of wimpy, but when you're coming off of Last Stand, you're probably at full health, and warriors already have so much passive mitigation going right now. I'm not quite sure how they've been adjusted over the past like month or so, but I guess 5% is like, we might as well give it to them. It's a little bit of something, but not too much. maybe other warriors would disagree and be like, no, that's great because when Last Stand ends, I feel vulnerable. That could be a thing. But that is it. Those are all the specs. I would love to know what you guys think of this, because you guys, for the most part, are better at all these classes than I am. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. Leave them in a comment below. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. And I'll see you guys later. Stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.